All right, so we are live. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kathy. I'm going to go ahead and pass over the screen sharing to you so that you can share your presentation here.
Fantastic, thank you.
All right, so you should be able to share your screen at this point then.
Very good, thank you. All right, is everyone able to see my screen? Trying to get a little emotion going here, and Jen, who's on the call, she helped put this presentation together, so a quick shout out to her for putting the style in here, and some of the super cute photos that you're going to see are compliments of Jen. But you probably are feeling a little bit like these, either the parents or the kids are both in this photo, and so that's why we're here today, is talking about tips for working from home. So again, thanks everybody for being here. So let's jump in with a little bit about me. So, as we've kind of been talking about a little bit here, I've worked from home long before it was cool, and had to figure out a lot of things for myself. So the tips and tricks that I'm giving today are born, from and forged from fire and trial and error. And, like I was saying before some of you joined, it's, what works best for you. So this stuff may not work for you. Maybe it does. Like, you need to adapt it to whatever your specific situation is. And I think you'll see that as we get into some of the examples. But, over 15 years working from home, I started out in a corporate setting. So working in an international environment. So, being on the phone all hours of the day, in the morning for Europe, in the afternoon and evening for Asia Pacific, and then everywhere in between. So I've really run the gamut as far as having to figure out my own schedule and work-life balance and boundaries to make sure that not everything and all of my energy was going to work. I've recently transitioned into entrepreneurship for myself. So last year was a big turning point for me, and I decided that working in the corporate environment was just not something that I wanted to do anymore. And so I had the ability to start my own consulting business, which is Savvy Maven. And so what I do is I take all of my experience for the last 20 years in process improvement and project management, and help small business owners and folks just like yourselves to get a better handle, some organization, some processes put in place so that your work doesn't take over your life. And I think this work from home, certainly with coronavirus, has become a big component of that. So again, glad you're all here today. Just to set the stage as far as, kind of what I grapple with every day from a working from home environment. I am married, my spouse works from home. And that is, recent. I was working from home up until, March, like a lot of other folks. And then, we introduced 2 people working from home. So that's definitely added some complexity. And then I have 2 fur kids, which, full disclosure, you'll probably hear them at some point during this meeting, because somebody walks by, a gnat bats an eyelash and they're all over it. So you may hear from those guys, but you guys all are, I'm sure, dealing with things like that, and hopefully we can, I can demonstrate how to handle that with grace. So, all right. So that's just a little bit about me. So what you'll learn and what I'm hoping you'll take away from today is I really want to give you some, just core pillars for being successful working from home. So you'll see I've got 10 tips here that we'll go through in detail, and I'll give you some examples and kind of talk through each of them. And that's where I'd like for you to chime in. So if you have some examples of things that fit the category that have worked really well for you, I'd love to hear what those are. I certainly don't profess to know everything about working from home. This is just, the tips that have been born from my experience over the years, but everybody's situation is a little bit different. So certainly chime in if you've had something that works well for you. Whether you've been working from home for eons like me, or if you're fresh and new to it just here over the summer, there should be some tips in here for everybody to help refine and continue to improve that experience. And I think the most important thing, and certainly something that's core to my consulting business, is like, just try it. Try something. And if it doesn't work, switch it up. Like there's no handbook here. There's no hard and fast rules. It's whatever works for you. And I think the key is recognizing when it doesn't work. And we'll get into that a little bit. All right. So I'm sure these photos on the left-hand side here are representative of how each one of you feels at some point during the day or the week. But where I think it's important to recognize that maybe working from home, you need to adjust your routine and maybe make some course corrections to improve your day, is if you are feeling frustrated at any point during the day, if you're easily distracted, if you have a hard time getting work done, so like that you just have things just resting on your shoulders and you're like, oh, I just don't want to get it done. Or maybe that looks like a feeling of being out of control, like you're just on some roller coaster without a lap bar, there's no seat belt, and you don't know what's coming up. So if you have feelings like that, then those are usually good cues to pay attention to that specific thing so that you can make some adjustments and apply some of the tips that we're going to cover. All right, so without further ado, let's dive in to the top 10 tips that I have for working from home. And the goal here is so that you feel accomplished at the end of the day. It's not like that roller coaster example where you just got off the ride and your hair's all a mess and you're just like, whoo, I made it. We want you to feel more accomplished and to feel much more in control of your day. And the blending of working from home and living at home definitely has its challenges there. All right, so I'm going to spend a bit of time on this one because communication is very important. So think about your individual situation right now. I don't know who all you have at your house. I don't know if you've got, spouses, kids, pets, whatever, but, think about your specific situation. And if you communicate and you think about what your needs are and you communicate that with your family, then that's going to help you preempt conflict, limit your disruption, and actually maximize your schedule. And I want you to think about this in terms of whether these folks live with you or not, okay? Because we all have family members, friends, loved ones who do not live with us, but they are also pulling on our time from time to time. So these tips are meant to apply to anyone who might be trying to reach out to you while you are busy doing work from home. All right, so communication. I think if we start there, folks need to know, especially if they're at your house. Let's think about, being at the house for a moment. You have folks who live with you, maybe they're kids, maybe they're adults, or a mixture of. They don't know when you're on a meeting. They don't know when it's important and you are the speaker, like I'm the speaker right now. That's a totally different setting than when I am a participant like you guys on a meeting, right? So they need to know when you can be interrupted and when you can't. So look for if there's a physical signal that you can give, like if you have the luxury of a spare room where you can close the door, then that's a great signal for anybody in your household to say, I can't interrupt right now because that door is closed. So that's when you would say, please don't interrupt me. Now you're probably thinking, but what if there's an emergency, right? Because things happen, okay? Like I was working from home, I mean, always, but one day in particular, and I started to smell something burning. And I'm like, yeah, I just have to go. Like I can't sit here and wait for my part of the meeting to go by. Like I have to go because my house could be on fire. Well, the folks who live with you might have those kinds of emergencies that come up. And it's important that, number one, you talk about what those things could be. So I'm trying to think of an example, and I lean on my nieces quite a bit because, they're really good at thinking things are emergencies to them when they're not, and they're 10 and 12. So this applies for when they were, much younger. But, an emergency to them is like, hey, Aunt Kathy, I need a drink of water. All right, that's not actually an emergency. Okay, like when the door is closed and you need a drink of water, just wait until I open the door. You can also post on the outside of the door when the door is going to be closed. And if you've got folks who are old enough to tell time, or, you know, you can kind of figure out where I'm headed with this, give them a signal, a signal as to when they can interrupt what you're working on for something like a drink of water. Something like the dog got out, or, you know, lunch caught on fire, you know, something like that. You need to identify up front, and it's not meant to be scary. It's just meant to draw a line that says, you know, this is worth interrupting me for, and I need to know about it. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. The second part of it then is, how do they communicate with you if said emergency criteria is met? I like to use text messages because I always have my phone with me, or my watch will buzz me when a text comes through or whatever. But there's other methods that you can use, like if your kids are gonna, you know, write you or throw a slip of paper under the door, or knock on the door, or just anything. But you want to make clear what it is that constitutes an emergency, what meets that criteria when your do not disturb light is on, whether your door is closed or whatever that looks like. So I think, you know, that covers for, you know, if you have folks who are working or living with you while you are also working from home. If you've got folks who want your attention, but they are not there in your house, and one of my good friends actually kind of brought this example to light for me, so I'll use it with you here. But so she and her husband, you know, both work from home, and their adult daughter lives away from home, but in the state. And she text messages them, and my friend instantly feels like, oh, I have to drop everything and answer my daughter. Well, maybe, except if, you know, my friend is with a client, or if she's in a meeting, like she can't really just drop everything and call her daughter. So the same example applies here as when I was talking about folks who live within your house. If people live outside of your home and are trying to communicate with you, it's perfectly fine to just let them know in a casual, you know, non-confrontational way, like, you know, hey mom, I work, you know, from 8 to 5, and you're welcome to text me or call me during that time, but just know that I can't get back to you right away because I'm just slammed with meetings. Or, you know, I'll call you on my lunch break, or text you back on my lunch break. And then you also need to work out, you know, what's an emergency with those folks too. Like if my mom is having an emergency, then I need her to signal me in a different way, because now I need to drop everything and react to that. So that's, you know, kind of the communication aspect of it. And this is again where, if you guys have examples of things that work well within your household or with your family members, you know, certainly feel free to chime in and share those things. Hillary, did we have anything come in like example wise or question wise on the chat? This one for me is just such a big one. I want to make sure that we allow plenty of time for it.
We didn't have anything come through on the chat, but we can certainly invite anybody to join in with any examples. I did actually order a do not disturb red door hanger that I use at home, and it's really done wonderful things. We do have a 14-year-old at home, so we are definitely in that mode of any issue is an emergency issue, and, you know, sort of setting those boundaries has been really helpful. So that was really good advice.
Good.
Nothing.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Oh, I put this in here in case, you know, in case
We have another
my
example?
speaker's not muted. Oh, I'm muted here. Oh.
We hear you.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, maybe whoever that was, if you want to pop your question or comment in the chat, we can try to grab it that way. All right, so just a final point on this one before we move on. You know, this is where, you know, if any of you guys are on like Facebook and, you know, you read about like, you know, people are venting about how their day has gone and things of that sort, like this is where I see the communication piece come in. So if you think about too, you guys probably have seen that video where that guy was interviewing for like an executive position or something, and his child came in and was like, "Dad, check this out, Dad." That's what I think of when I think about communicating with your family. So it's just a way to kind of prevent that. But I'll tell you on the flip side, like best laid plans, they don't always work. So I would also just say, folks who are on a meeting with you. So, like how I had some dogs barking earlier. I don't know if you heard that or not. They decided to light somebody up. Everybody's going through that. So it takes a little bit, but you also just have to give yourself some grace. That's an upcoming tip here. But if somebody comes in and interrupts you, like just tell your people on your meeting, like, hang on a sec, I'll be right back, and just mute your line, turn your video off, and handle whatever it is or whoever it is that has come in. But, they don't know that they're interrupting you, and they certainly aren't trying to make you look bad or, anything like that. They just, it's an opportunity to further clarify your communication plan. So it's going to happen. And I'm sure you've all experienced it, right? It's going to happen. And the other folks on the other end of the line, I mean, it's happened to them too, right? They all understand we're all going through this together. So I would just invite you guys to remember that it's okay if people or dogs come in and interrupt you. All right, I see some chats coming in. Hillary, anything do we need to address before I move on?
Well, we do have some great new ideas. So Lorraine says that she uses 3 colored clothespins: red for a video call, blue for phone calls, and white for free time. So that's a really great idea.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Both Rick and Davina say, scheduling things ahead of time, letting people know your schedule for the week, to sort of set up, what your week's plan is going to be like is great. And then Davina also said that she schedules time with her kids so that they have meetings scheduled and feel like they're an important part of the day. So I love that for any of us that have kids at home. And then Sherry says that her dogs can't read. So of course that poses a challenge. But just, that if they're being fussy, just maybe go into the bedroom and then into the bathroom so that you have sort of that double sound barrier. So thank you, everybody. That was all great advice.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, guys. I really appreciate it. And somebody out there was reading my mind, because the next tip is setting a schedule. So I think this one is important, and especially for those of you who have children at home that are going to be starting school up here pretty soon. And, maybe you're opting to have them stay at home and do school online. Think of it in that context as well. But there's certainly a scientific benefit to having a routine. So I'm sure you guys have all read or seen the studies, or at least know the concept that, humans like to have repeatable, dependable events happening. Now, I'm not saying, that it's 11:16, so I must be eating lunch for the next 4 minutes. Like, I'm not saying it's that rigorous, but just the general principle of you wake up, you exercise, you eat, you start your meetings, you take a lunch break, you finish your day at a reasonable time, and then one of the chat examples just leads right into this, where, if you have to, schedule time with your children, schedule time with your spouse. And it sounds a little bit mechanical, but man, it makes all the difference in the world for you, because now you know that at 5 o'clock, work is done and you have to switch gears and spend time with your spouse. Spend time with your kids. Take the dogs for a walk. I can't say the word. But, if you're scheduling it in, and it doesn't have to be hard and fast, but if it's, 5 and you end up doing 5:15 one day and 5:10 the next, the point is not to follow that schedule so rigidly that now you're angry about that. It's to just give yourself some guidelines so that you are certain that within each day, you are spending time where you want and need to be spending it. Thinking about, the lead-in slide here, where it's, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling pulled in multiple directions, you're not getting your work done, this is where a schedule comes into play. And those feelings are indications that you need to look at your schedule, and it's okay to change it. So my example here that I have since changed, but over the summer, I had set myself kind of an hour block in the morning to do a workout. Well, guess how many days a week I was getting that workout done? Yeah, it's 0. So I'm like, you know what, why? And then I would just get mad. Like, your phone or whatever gives you the reminder, like, hey, you're supposed to work out soon. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get to it. Stop bugging me, right? That's when it's time to change it. And it's okay. Like, if you're not going to be able to work out in the morning, bang it, do it in the afternoon. Do it in the evening. Like, the fact that you're getting a workout in during the day is the point. It's not so, and I'm using a workout as an example, but you have things, and if you've not thought about it in this way, I encourage you to do a little bit of homework here, but think about the stuff that you need to get done every day. And then make sure you carve out time to get those things done. And you'd be surprised at what you can accomplish if you even tell yourself to spend 15 minutes on something. So that's one of my mom's super awesome life hacks, is just set yourself a timer for 15 minutes. You can, once you get started on it, like you're reading a book or, you're learning Spanish or whatever it is, after 15 minutes, you've at least done, you can check the box and say, I did the thing that I set out to do, or you just keep going with it. But scheduling, I think, is super important. And again, don't think of it as rigorous as it may sound. It's more like blocks of time to make sure that the things that you list out in your day that you want to accomplish, that you're getting those done each day. All right, anything come in on the chat, Hillary, before we move on?
Nope, we can go to the next slide. We're at about 11:30.
All right, so speed it up is what you're telling me. Okay. I front loaded the important ones first. All right. This one is pretty self-explanatory, and I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but go easy on yourself. Like, working from home sounds all glamorous and all cool and everything, but I mean, it's rough, and it is quite a transition. And somebody was mentioning earlier, I think it was Jocelyn, like, it's completely different ballgame if you get to work from home 1 or 2 days a week versus now you have to work from home every day of the week. That's a completely different mindset. So give yourself some grace, set some healthy expectations on what you can get done in a day. Pay attention to what you get done in a day, because I bet you your list is twice as long as what you actually have the energy to accomplish. Know when you're done. So I've got done in quotes here because that's twofold. Done is finished, like it's 5 p.m. or whatever your ending time is for the day. So stop working. Like, get off of Facebook. Stop promoting your business page on Facebook. Like, don't answer emails. Don't just text that one more person. Like, it'll wait until the morning, especially if it has come in, that late in the day. Like, you're done and it's time to switch to something else. Knowing when you're done also pertains to your energy level. So I call it like an emotional piggy bank, but you can think of it like energy. There's only so much energy that any one person has. It varies person to person. But like yesterday, I had a whole bunch of stuff to do. And so I spent all of my emotional money during the day. So then by the time dinner time hit, I was like, oh, I just want to sit on the couch. I don't want to do anything. I don't even want to cook. Like, I'm just done. So pay attention to that, because as you start to tune in to how much energy you're spending and giving to others, it'll help you to save energy for your loved ones, your family members, your friends who also are wanting of your time. And then celebrate your wins. Like, small things are super important. So like the fact that I recognize that I blew it yesterday, that's a win, because I recognized it. And so now I can take adjustments and not get into that situation here today. All right, so this is my friend Jen's concept here, but I love it. So find a quiet retreat. So if you think about a retreat, it's a spa day, right? Like, you are not plugged in, you're not checking email, you're not working. That's not feasible, for all of us all the time. But that spa day can happen within just a few minutes a day, and we'll kind of get into that in a future tip here. But I mean, you're not going to some day spa, but there are still ways that you can take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. And that's that emotional piggy bank I was talking about. It'll also help you gain perspective. So where, you know, you've all had those days, right, where just everything is upsetting and you're like, ugh. You'll get some perspective if you just take that opportunity to recharge. And that looks different for everybody. We'll get into some examples coming up here. Okay, so I have also an ergonomic background. So this is just a public service announcement to say, make sure you have good posture. And I'm sure you've all got your parents on your shoulder, like, stand up straight. I mean, it's pretty much that. So think about when you first started working from home, you're like, this is awesome. I'm in my jammies, I'm laying on the couch, like, this is great. Well, at the end of the day, your body probably was telling you otherwise. So just remember that, you know, sit up straight, have a 90-degree angle when you're typing, move. If you can't do any of those things, at least move once an hour so that you get a chance to stretch. You move your muscles, your ligaments, and that will prevent a longer term injury down the way. I have carpal tunnel, and I have that because I had poor posture from typing over the years, which, you know, is a big form of communication when working from home. So you definitely need to pay attention to this. It will sneak up on you, I guarantee it. And one day you're fine, and then the next you're not. So this is just a PSA to watch your posture. And if nothing else, make sure you move at least once an hour. And there's a whole meeting strategy on that. You know, you probably heard the 45-minute meetings and all that. Like, if I get into a situation where I'm back to back all day, as I'm sure many of you are, where you just have one call, right, and then I just tell the people, like, guys, I got to end this meeting, or I've got to bail early because I haven't had a break for 2 hours. And people are very understanding of that. All right. A bit about prioritization. So this is really hard in a work from home situation because it all looks important, right? And it's work, it's laundry, it's dishes, it's combing the kids' hair. You know, it's all of that stuff all looks important because it's just right there in your face. So this is where, when you have your schedule that we set up earlier, prioritize within your schedule what's the most important thing that will propel you towards your goal. So whatever the time slot you're in, if it's learning a new language, if it's reading a book, if it's meditating, you know, any of that stuff, you've got a goal for that, right? So think about what's the next important thing that you have to do to get that goal accomplished, and take a baby step towards it in the time you have allotted. The other way to think about this is what has just horrible consequences if you don't get it done today. So that's another way of looking at prioritization, where sometimes it's easy to identify that this is the next big thing. Other times I have to look at it like, ooh, if I don't get that done today, then the knock-on effect of that is going to be disastrous, and that helps me prioritize as well. All right, here is a fun one. I learned this from a fellow coach, Carlos Hidalgo. He introduced me to the concept of Ultradian Rhythm, which is just a super cool way of saying, work for 90 minutes and then take a 20 to 30-minute break. So every 2 hours, you're working for, you know, 75% of that time, and then you give yourself a break. You would be surprised. And for folks that I've shared this with, and that was the takeaway that they had from these 10 tips, they're like, oh my gosh, like, I have never felt more productive than by following this suggestion. So I encourage you guys, you know, if you have work that needs to get done, schedule it. Don't work on it for more than an hour and a half. Everybody's different, so feel it out, but start with an hour and a half, and then force yourself to take a break. And you'll actually have more energy, and the hour and a half that you devote to work during that time will be far more productive, and you'll have a lot more focus on what you're working on. So I encourage you guys, like, if you do nothing else, try this one and see how this science is helping folks be more productive and more efficient with their time.
Kathy, we did have a couple things come through on the chat here.
Sure.
Tanya, if you don't mind, I'm just going to call out on you because you mentioned that you have a standing desk. I do as well, so I'm curious to know how many other people on this call might have a standing desk, but it has definitely, really changed my life in terms of just being able to take calls standing up at it, if I don't need to be doing a lot of typing. And so do you do anything in terms of scheduling out, when you're standing versus sitting? Are you standing most of the day? Can you kind of, tie that into the slide that we just discussed and then also the good posture slide?
There's some tasks I turn into an idiot trying to accomplish standing up. And so, and that's just trial and error. Like Kathy was talking about project management, and I could not do a schedule for the life of me standing up. It was like earth-shattering nightmare. And so I'm like, okay, I need to sit down for that. And then other things, I'm standing most of the day, and then it's just this natural, and it's a high stand, and I've got a high chair. It's not like one babies use. It's like a high bar stool. So yeah, I have my high chair and my sippy cup. I'm such an adult, but that's okay. So it's just easy to just kind of like rest, rest back. Like here I'm resting and here I'm standing. It's not that big of a difference. And so it just gives me that reprieve. And if you're not used to doing it, it's like a workout at the same time. Your abs will be like, hot damn. So it's like a double bonus thing. You get to get better posture, you get your workout in, and you get to work. So I don't schedule it. How about you, Hillary?
I set myself reminders, right, for every 90 minutes. Kathy and I have talked a lot about the 90-minute schedule, and so I try and stick pretty close to that. And so I will typically sit for the 90 minutes, and then I raise the desk up, and I might do a phone call or something, but I tend to walk while I talk. And so talking about that disastrous standing, working situation, I've learned that I cannot walk, talk, and type. So I can do 2 things at once, not 3. So it just depends. I do try and stand at least 50% of the day, and I feel like I'm a lot more productive with it. So.
Yeah, I always say I feel like I think better when I'm moving, so I have to walk around to kind of get those creative juices flowing. So I do a lot of miles in my house, but that's a whole other story. All right, awesome. Well, let's keep cruising through. Just a few more tips to share, and then we'll have some time at the end to open it up for discussion and any questions. So this one is, something that I think if you had been driving into the office for any length of time before, guess what you don't have anymore? It's a commute, right? So that is instantly been removed from your daily routine. And I would encourage you to think about throwing that back in, at least one of them, either in the morning or in the afternoon, whenever you feel like you need to recharge. But I mean, this here says start it in the morning, but like I said before, do it whenever. But think about it like this. You were leaving the house at, let's say, 7 a.m. to get someplace by 8 a.m. to go to work. Well, that's an hour-long commute that you probably aren't taking anymore. You might be sleeping in, you might be doing some other stuff, right? But you don't get that quiet time to yourself where you're listening to your favorite talk radio, you're listening to podcasts in the car, whatever you were doing. So think about the fact that you don't have a commute anymore, and try to come up with ways to carve out that space for yourself, because whether you knew it or not, you actually depended upon those commute times to recharge yourself, be ready for your workday, and then slough off your workday on your way home to be ready for your family when you got there. All right, I know this came up in some of the opening remarks as far as what you guys were looking to get out of the talk here today. So boundaries are very important, and not just for yourself, also for others. And it's not just like you're protecting your goals, but you're protecting your sanity. Like there's a lot to setting boundaries, and boundaries go very well with the first slide, which was communication. Like you need to kind of sit there and do some self-reflection and figure out what it is you need every day. And then you have to kind of figure out what boundaries to put up in order to achieve those things every day. And then talk to folks who might have the, the accidental possibility of infringing upon your boundaries. So I'll give a client example. In real estate, there is a kind of a conception out there that people, that realtors are just on 24/7 and they are there, to do their clients' bidding. Well, yes, except for in my case, I am brain dead after 8 p.m. and I am asleep by 9:30 p.m. So if you're texting me overnight or, something like that, it angers me because now that's my own personal time that you're infringing upon, but I'm also worthless to you at the same time. So if you think about that example, a way to either get ahead of that up front is when you're, sitting down with your spouse or your boss or coworkers, you just kind of tell them what your boundaries are. And that could be when you have to leave to pick up your kids from school, if they're going in person, if you've got doctor's appointments, all of those things kind of come into play. But you've got to set those up front, and then you have to recognize when people are not adhering to those boundaries. That's your cue to have a conversation with them. So just say, I'm in bed by 9:30, so text me all you want, and just don't get worried when I don't get back to you until the morning. Things like that. Same with, I've got to depart to run an errand, or, I've got a doctor's appointment or whatever. Just set those expectations up front with your boss or whoever it applies to, so that they know how to reach you, or if you're unavailable, when you will be back. And I see some chats coming in. Hillary, do we need to pick those up, or are we good to hit this last one and then open it?
Well, it sounds like Rick might have a good story to share if you're open to it, about not letting the kids touch the computer. Rick, do you want to share your story? All right, we'll see if he wants to come off mute towards the end, but we'll go ahead and move into slide 10 then.
Beautiful. All right, so to wrap it all up, one of my favorite phrases is Rome wasn't built in a day. So you have to just take one task at a time. So we have covered quite a bit here. And for some of you, it's probably like, wow, these are 10, brand new things that I need to start incorporating right now. And for others of you, maybe it's 1 or 2 tips have really tripped your trigger. But, think of it like a diet. If you are super strict on yourself and you try to change a whole bunch of stuff all at once, how successful is that diet or is that routine going to be for you? Probably not that successful as if you just try one thing and get good at that for a week and then add something else and then get good at that for a week and kind of keep building on that instead of trying to tackle all of this or all of anything at one time. So you're not going to eat an elephant all in one sitting. You'll just take one bite. You can't build Rome in a day. That's where this one is coming from. And the getting towards the bigger goal here could be work goals. It could be family goals. It could be any of the tips that I've talked about here, just working towards implementing and mastering those for yourself. All right. So here's another cute Jen pick. Thanks, Jen. So the object here is to reduce stress and recognize what you can control, and then control that. You control your own behavior, your own reaction to people. You can't control other people. They're still going to text you when you're in a meeting, when you're presenting. You're still going to bark, when you're talking to the boss. It's just going to happen. So control what you can from that, and know that those folks are not doing it to mess you up. They just don't know. So give them some grace too. All right, so pay attention to your productivity, your health, and your well-being. And, those are kind of the 3 tenets here that have been throughout the 10 tips. And then, like I said, throughout, just try something. And if it doesn't work, guess what? Wad it up and throw it away and try something else. There's no handbook here. There's no rules for what does or doesn't work from you or for you and your family. It's just being able to figure out what works and then sticking to it and communicating that to the folks who need to know. All right, that is it, the whirlwind tour of tips for working from home successfully. So let's open it up, Hillary, and just see what discussion points or questions everybody might have. And I think I've got the mute power here, so.
Yep, everybody should be able to unmute themselves. I want to thank you all for being very respectful during the presentation. That was really awesome. I'm sure you guys have all been running into that with online meetings too, right? There's that one person that can't figure out where the mute button is. So thank you all so much. And I hope that you guys found a lot of value in this. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions, tips and tricks that you want to share, what's been working for you, where you've been struggling, still got about 12 minutes left in the hour, so we can work through any of those exercises.
I have a tip that I learned this weekend that's new that I want to share. It's basically scheduling self-care in my calendar. So what I always did before is I would just basically do the grind work, and then I would look at my calendar and feel overwhelmed. But considering like what my heart wants to do, like if I want to go, swim in the pool in the backyard for, an hour to revive, or just to take care of myself, and having that integrated has helped the calendar overwhelm for me. So
nice. Yeah, that's excellent. And I
Hi,
think
guys.
it's a great example, Jen, of like morph it to whatever works for you, right? So thank you for sharing that. All right, I
Hi
heard
guys,
somebody
this
else.
is Rick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me? So
Yes.
I just wanted to share with you guys, we have a toddler at home, and we find that setting up a schedule and sticking to it has helped the infant or our child tremendously. She knows what to expect, and so she doesn't feel anxious. So we stick to our schedule, and we do certain things all day long with her, and that works for us.
Very nice. And it sounds like you probably have had to work out, with another adult in the home who is going to be spending time with her at which time, yes?
Exactly. Well, we both work from home, so we have to balance. And believe me, it's quite the juggling act.
Yeah, I can imagine. My sister-in-law is in the same situation. They have an 18-month-old at home, and now they both work from home. And daycare is not an option, so they definitely have to communicate and probably over-communicate who's going to be helping with him at what time, who's got breakfast, who's got lunch, all of those things, and work it around their work schedules. So kudos to you for implementing a schedule and finding something that works for you and your family. That's a really huge step.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, Kathy, that's another thing that you and I had talked about before is that, schedules right now don't have to look like a 9 to 5. And so her and I have been talking at the beginning when all of us came, to working from home, and I was asking Kathy for some advice, and I was like, well, our 14-year-old, she sleeps until noon, she needs to be up, and Kathy just, says, why? Like you're not a morning person. And I was like, you know what, that's absolutely true. When I was 14, to think about being able to sleep until noon every day, that would be such, this gift. And so let's have some freedom with that, right? Let's use some of that to put, a positive light in her situation. And then I had now 4 hours to myself in the morning that I didn't have to be juggling both, work from home and parenting. So, I think that's, part of what I was struggling with at the beginning too, was just letting go of that rigid 9 to 5 schedule of being in an office. That doesn't mean what I have to do at home either. I can be more flexible and say, okay, I'm going to work from 8 to noon. And the teenager is going to be awake. It's an emergency situation because she's starving. So we have lunch together, and then, she goes back to, hang out with her friends on FaceTime and being in the pool, and I get my afternoon. So it's really become, this more comfortable, more relaxed environment, but still with us.
Yeah, that's a great example, Hillary. And I think you had the added bonus of not having your internet bandwidth chewed up in the morning because she was asleep. She's not online yet. So nice.
I think one of the things that really stood out to me is when you were talking about routines, because I was in that situation where before March, I worked on and off at home. Like there was a couple days here, so I kind of just made the day work. But when we came back, when we transitioned to working from home, the one thing I knew the first couple weeks was like, I was taking my shower at 11 o'clock in the morning, and my mindset wasn't where it needed to be. And I really struggled with that. So I went back to what my normal routine was when I was going into the office. I would get up, have my coffee, take my shower, and get dressed for work, because that helps with my mindset. If I'm sitting there in my pajamas, it just doesn't feel like work. And so I need to get dressed for work. And I would do my makeup and hair and everything. And that actually helped me out so much more. Like, I was in the mindset of work, and it helped limit some of the distractions, because I know if I didn't have that routine and I didn't get into the right mindset, like I'm going to work, all the other stuff happening became even more of a distraction. It took me longer to get back on task. So routines and getting into that mindset really does help too.
Nice. Yeah, that's an excellent example. And I think everybody is different, right? So it's a matter of what works best for you and what gets your best self ready to show up to work each day and to be present then after work for your family. So that's excellent that you were able to try something. You recognized it wasn't working, so you tried something else and kind of went back to the way that it used to be before work from home was a mandate and found something that worked for you. That's outstanding, Jocelyn. Nice.
Does anybody else have any stories that they'd like to share or questions that they'd like to ask Kathy?
I just wanted to chime in there real quick. This is Sherry. One thing that I learned, I put in the comments too, is that you have to really sometimes just let some things go. So it's easy when you're home to see, oh gosh, I need to unload the dishwasher, or oh gosh, I need to do this, or oh gosh, this is happening, or different things going on. But you really need to try and think about, okay, is the world going to end if I don't get the dishwasher done now, or if it waits till 5 o'clock, or if, even with some work things too, there's some things that you put on yourself that are critical that you have to do that may not be that critical. My cousin teases me because she is like a go-getter person, and she's constantly like, I need to do this project. It's done, it's done, it's done, it's done. Whereas I'm more like, no big deal. And so she always teases me that, hey, you said like 4 weeks ago you were gonna, straighten out your garden hose, things like that. And I just haven't done with it. Is it a big deal that the garden hose is crinkled on the thing? No. Is it going to bother anybody? No. So when you're home, I think it's easy just to see those little projects and yeah, sometimes if you're on like a call, it's easy. You could put on the call and then, and then unload the dishwasher, stuff like that. But yeah, I almost lock myself in the office all day long, and I'm in work mode at that time.
Yeah, that's really good. Thanks for sharing that, Sherry, because I had to do the same thing. And then what was really interesting was my partner at the time thought that because I worked from home, of course I could be doing laundry and dishes, and why wasn't all that stuff done, right? So that's where the expectation setting comes in as well. But it's so funny, but like I'll unload the dishwasher when I'm a participant on a call and you don't have to see me or I don't have to talk all that much. Then I'm like, ooh, now it's a challenge to try to get that dishwasher done. So I turn those things into like breaks for myself, and it makes me get up and not be at my desk, and I'm still feeling accomplished. But you're right, Sherry, like, is it the end of the world if the dishwasher isn't emptied? Nah. Like I've pulled out of the dishwasher for a week when it's real busy, like, oh well. Get to it when we get to it.
All right, awesome, guys. Well, we are almost at noon here. Thank you all so much for your participation. Thank you to our fantastic co-host today, Kathy. Really great stuff that you've shared today. Her contact information is up on the screen right now, so grab a screenshot of it. Certainly feel free to reach out to her if you have any additional questions or concerns that come up after today's call. She's a fantastic coach and has certainly helped me a lot in my business and personal life as well. So thank you so much, Kathy, for being here today, and for all of you for participating. We
Thank
will
you very
email
much.
all of this out too. You'll get a link to the recording. So if you want to rewatch it again and relive it this hour with us, we would encourage you to do that. It'll also be shared on our YouTube channels, and then we'll send out an email with recapping some of the tips and tricks that we took away from today.
Yeah, it's been great, guys. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for your willingness to share and participate it's just such a critical thing for you all to kind of get settled in on what works well from you. If there wasn't, if there was something that you wanted that you didn't get touched upon here today, like Hillary said, just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to get on the phone, on another Zoom call, whatever, to talk through if you've got a more specific situation. I've done lots of different things and, have probably been through what you are experiencing. So feel free to reach out. And if I don't know, then I probably know someone who can help. So always here.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Thank you, Kathy.
Take care.